Okay. Okay. Here we come with the wrap up of day one here in beautiful Las Vegas, Nevada for PegaWorld, Pega Systems annual gathering of all their customers and their partners. Yeah, it did. Okay. Okay. If you saw, for any crazy reason, if you stuck around here and saw my preview of what I was hoping to see here at PegaWorld, one of the things I was hoping to see. So yes, I was hoping to see customers. I was hoping to see how partners have been building on Blueprint. I did not expect to see, which I actually really enjoyed seeing, not only a partnership story, but also a quick follow on a customer story, that being Pega's partnership with AWS, specifically around AWS Transform. So if we rewind the tape to last year and talk about AWS Transform, of course, that is, remember, okay, go back and look for it. It's when they dropped all the servers and, and everything exploded here in Las Vegas, AWS, like boom, right. Well, we have now seen where that opportunity to have AI tackle some of the older legacy languages that have been holding some organizations back from their transformation goals. AWS Transform was really looking to tackle that, right? And they were talking about everything from SAP and ABAP to COBOL. They were kind of looking at everything. And yesterday on stage, we got to hear about what happens when you take AWS and Pega and put that together. So imagine not only being able to map and identify the processes, the systems to invoke, the discrete steps, like everything you need to kind of get from here to there through Pega's Blueprint offering. Do we call it an offering? I guess we call it an offering. Opportunity. I don't know. But through blueprints. And then combine that with the power to actually shift and identify, understand, and then modernize those processes that have been trapped in languages long past. Heard a hysterical story where a customer's like, listen, I keep having to bring in this one engineer who knows COBOL, and he literally keeps threatening to retire. So they pay like an astronomical price to just get a little bit of time. But to this guy, I say, go for it, sir. If you're getting that money, I mean, let's do this. But for others who are actually getting held back because of things like this, AWS Transform is that ultimate translator, but you still need a map. I mean, I can figure out how to get from different countries on my train ticket through Europe, but I can't translate all those languages that quickly without using AI. And this is where those two things came together. So it was really great to hear that on stage. It was really great to hear from a customer who has actually gone through this process in Unum and really understand where not only some of the frustration had been settling in, kind of that apathy of we're never going to be able to do this, and then how bringing in AWS Transform and bringing in Pega Blueprints really didn't just enable that transformation. It shot through some of that culture. It shot through the culture that was always, I mean, that has really solidified that idea that you couldn't do it. So that was great to see. So check and check. The things I wanted to see, I got to see it. But oh boy, the other thing I said I wanted to see was Spicy Allen. And oh, we got like on the hot ones rating of like, this is impossible. This one's going to be impossible. This is the chicken wing you can't eat. I'm fairly certain Allen was channeling that. Yes. Okay. How do I put this? How do I put this? How do I put this? Okay, so you know how everyone's starting to talk about like tokenomics. Larry Dignan has written about the absurdity of tokenomics in many of his insights and in many of his newsletters. If you are not subscribed, please go to the Constellation website and subscribe for those newsletters. They're fantastic. Follow Larry. I shouldn't have to keep telling you this, But Larry and I, in a recent CRTV spot, also took on some buzzword bingo, and I knew that the word token maxing could potentially break Larry, and it did not disappoint. Token maxing and hearing the kind of like weird broiness of it all. I'm not gonna lie. Larry said that you sound like an incel when you say it. I have a funny feeling that Alan would actually really dig that statement and would 100% agree with it, because Alan Trefler got on the day one keynote stage and basically called people pushing tokens like they are little hits of candy on a corner. He called them drug dealers. It happened. It happened. He said they're drug dealers, and that everyone's been running around and taken a little taste, right? Everyone's getting a little bump of what it's like to live in this agentic world, and then suddenly you're hooked. But what was interesting is how Pega has responded to that, which is really to say the AI and the push towards that agentic process reality isn't the problem. It's getting hooked on the tokens that gets you hooked on the experimentation, that gets you hooked on this idea that every single time a process, every single time an agentic workflow is executed, which for some processes could be every hour, could be every minute. We don't know, right? It doesn't need to re-reason. It doesn't need to go through that whole flow again. It doesn't need to hit that context, hit that reason, kind of hit all the things that are really expensive, that are draining those token accounts faster than anyone can really count and keep up with. It's where you get the headlines of CEOs saying, listen, I blew through my budget already and it's April. What Alan is saying, what Pega is saying is actually do that, but do it once. Do it once until you have that approved workflow that you know probably doesn't need to go through that re-reasoning every single time. In fact, that workflow, you just keep running it through a more efficient, more affordable AI framework and model. It's about calculating and orchestrating and throttling. He did make a little also slam on, you can't just put a little control tower on it. I mean, he was spicy. He was spicy, y'all. But what has driven Pega to do is really double down on something that the company and Alan have been talking about for several years now, which is being smart about when and where things run. Does that AI and does all that agentic power, do all those tokens need to be focused on what you're doing at design time? Or should it constantly be renewing at runtime? And what Alan has said consistently several years, and I remember sitting in those AMA sessions with Alan for the last 3 or 4 years now. And this discussion of what happens at design time as opposed to what happens at runtime has been such a consistent part of his conversation. It is so ingrained into how he is as an engineer. Right, he was sharing this hysterical story about, back in the day when he was a baby engineer, gosh, and remember, he founded Pegasystems at 27. But when he was a baby engineer, it wasn't about how much code you just spewed out the door. It was about, could you find it? Did you know what it was? Did you know what it did? Did you know what the outcome and the execution would be? And somewhere along the way, in our absolute infatuation with what all of this generative and agentic AI can do, we lost the reality that we have to be focused on those business outcomes. We have to understand what it does before we call it a success. And I could not agree with someone more. I could not agree with someone more violently, shall we say. Okay, I wouldn't call everyone pushing tokens drug dealers. Maybe, okay, I will now, but I mean, Alan said it first. We don't blame him on that one. But this is about consistency. It's about predictability. It's also about Pega having had this point of view for years and is now working to benefit their customers by creating easier paths on how to get this done. I think it's one thing to stand in an open doorway and shout at people about design time and runtime. First time I heard it, gosh, years ago. I mean, I had to go look it up. Marketer. No one's telling me about this stuff. I had to go find it. But I did find it, and it was important to find. I think it's important to find because that nuance, that discussion about when things happen at design time and when things happen at runtime, that will start to be a conversation that gets trampled on, but it is an important one because it directly leads to our capacity to understand what's happening as a output of our systems as opposed to what's an outcome of our business. And true to form, Pega understands this, and Pega is putting their money where their mouth is. We're all hearing about people changing their pricing models, going to consumption models, going to resolution models. Of course, we heard at Zendesk that they're the resolution platform, and they are looking at those resolutions, not those discrete skills that may execute and be outputs along the way. They're looking at resolutions. Pega is very much in that same space. I think that they are going at it far more broadly. I do think that what they are talking about is Pega is basing their pricing and they're basing their approach on per completed case. So it's about the tasks executed that are from start to finish. So they are still focused on the case. They're still focused on complex cases. And even those complex cases reach an outcome. That is what people are being charged on. It's not about a token meter that just keeps spinning to keep bringing the dollars in. And he was very, very, very adamant about pointing that out. Listen, other day one highlights before we start getting into like Shakespearean diatribe here. So lots about combating this nonsense about, token maxing and tokenomics. Pretty soon we'll be at the token apocalypse, so then we'll have to deal with that. But Pega's betting that their customers will actually not have to deal with that because they will be very focused on those agentic processes at design time and executing, through good old-fashioned old school AI, if we can still call it that. The stuff we were using 5 years ago that still works. I will also say that I found something really interesting, and again, I think it's an example of Pega putting their money where their mouth is, and it is the introduction that was dropped yesterday of their solution designer initiative. Yes, they've got. Listen, Pega had a whole slew of announcements, and we'll review them later in a day two recap, especially around their studio and their Infinity Studio and things like that. But I do want to talk about this solution designer initiative because this is really about skills-based training. And it's not just skills-based training on how to use AI, how to use tech, get certified to use all these technologies. It's very intentionally about bridging the gap that gap that forms in all the technology that we could be using, all the things that we can be spending on to make sure that we do get to those outcomes and resolutions. And the fact that oftentimes, listen, the reason why we can get fooled into an output being an outcome is because we didn't sit down and actually map the business outcome, the business goal ahead of time. We just raced into it. This is really intended to be for business users, technologists, architects, developers to be able to understand what the business intent is and then what is the technology that empowers that business intent. I think that's really important. Those are important skills, and those are important skills that, guess what? Claude ain't going to be able to code it for you. Claude's going to be able to code amazing things. And I am daily impressed and excited with what people can achieve and accomplish. But if you can't figure out what the business intent was, and if you're having a hard time aligning those two things, you need to take a step back. AI for AI's sake is a losing proposition every single time. AI to achieve societal outcomes, AI to achieve personal outcomes, AI to achieve business outcomes. That's what we're here for. So I was happy to see that Pega is going to double down on the type of education and certification program that brings both of those things to the table, not just one. not just learn how to use the tech, good luck with the business later. So I applaud that. I appreciate that and wanted to highlight that out of many day one announcements. Listen, there are a couple places I'm going to point you. I'm going to point you, if you are on the big bad Twitter machine, follow Mike Nee. Mike's here with me. He, of course, is my colleague covering all things data to decisions. He is a first timer here at PegaWorld. So I think that his insights that he is sharing on Twitter, X, are really insightful because they're coming from a place of how do we make all of this work from a position of data, from a posture of context, and how does this move across, through, up the stack. Mike's got thoughts on that. Follow him there. Larry put out a great wrap up of the big news hits coming out of PegaWorld. Go see that, constellationr.com. And I'll be back with more. So, you follow along on Twitter, follow along on LinkedIn. I'll be back here, if not tonight, then certainly tomorrow, with some additional thoughts on closing out day 2, because we're going to hear more from the product heads and the product leaders. Here's the last thing I'm going to say about the day 1 keynote and day 1. Karim has a best friend. If you know, you know. His best friend is Claude. And the funniest thing about that, and I don't think he even realizes he does it, but every time he puts in a prompt to Claude, he puts "hey" at the very beginning of it. Hey, hey, Chief Product Officer. He's head of product here at Pega. And he literally talks to Claude as if it's like it's another team member. It's someone he's shooting a Slack over to. And he's like, "Hey, can you do this? Hey, I want to do this. Hey." Every single prompt. It is the funniest yet thoroughly most endearing thing I have seen in a live demo in a very long time. And he did it more than once, right? It wasn't just like what he did on the keynote stage. He's doing this like in front of analysts. He's doing it in front of press. He's, "hey." Now, he doesn't put punctuation in there, which, for me could always be an issue. You never know. I mean, I get judgy on stuff like that, but it was very funny because this is the perfect example of someone who works within a very pragmatic organization and is himself a very pragmatic product lead. They're not just building for the sake of building. It's not something for funsies. But he is empowering and he is encouraging AI utilization when it comes to how they build here at Pega. This is not an organization, no matter what Alan calls people on stage, call them drug dealers all day long. He didn't say drugs were bad. He just said we had to figure out how to pay for them in a far more affordable and effective way. Right? So it's not about not using AI. In fact, he's encouraging it in his organization. And you see that in folks like Karim. What he's saying is we all have to be smart about how we consume this. And can we still consume something over the counter? Do we really need to go out to the drug dealer to go find something? I got to also stop using drug analogies. This is probably where this has to end. So day 1 PegaWorld, it's been a great day. It's been really great seeing this pragmatic approach. Today, I'm going to hunt down how this pragmatic approach is manifesting with customers. So that's my promise to you guys. Thanks for joining. See you later. See you later. See you later. Oof. Have a great day. Make good choices.